Tonight, we travel back into the world's most forgotten history. Close your eyes, relax, and drift into the quiet past. Welcome to another soft journey through time. Tonight, we walk slowly into the ordinary days of medieval Europe, where most lives move gently beneath gray skies, beside cooking fires, and along narrow roads worn smooth by countless quiet footsteps. There are no grand halls waiting for us here. No loud moments rushing toward us. Only the soft rhythm of ordinary life. The sound of wind brushing through fields. The distant creak of wooden wheels. The warmth of bread slowly baking before sunrise. And somewhere, beneath a cool morning sky, a village is beginning to wake. The night still lingers over the fields. Darkness rests softly on rooftops made from straw and weathered wood. Smoke from last evening's fires has faded into the cold air. Inside small homes, people sleep closely together beneath rough blankets stuffed with wool or straw. The walls around them are simple. Wood, packed earth, and clay hold back the wind as best they can. The floor beneath them is hard. Sometimes covered with rushes or dried grass, sometimes simply dirt pressed flat from many years of footsteps. The room smells faintly of smoke that never fully leaves. Ash from yesterday's fire rests quietly inside the hearth. A wooden bench sits against one wall. A few clay bowls wait patiently for morning. Outside, the world is still. The village rests beneath the fading stars. No lamps shine in windows now. No roads glow in the darkness. Only the moon hangs above fields sleeping beneath mist. Then, somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. Not loudly. Not urgently. Only enough to remind the world that morning is slowly arriving. Inside one small house, a farmer begins to stir. He wakes before sunlight. Almost everyone does. The work ahead is long, and daylight matters deeply here. Every hour of sun carries meaning. Fields must be tended. Animals fed. Tools repaired. Water carried. Bread prepared. The farmer sits up slowly. The air feels cold against his skin. His back aches before the day even begins. Years of bending over soil have left their quiet marks upon him. Still, he rises. There is little choice. Life moves with the seasons. Outside the small doorway, the sky has begun to soften from black to pale blue. Mist drifts over damp fields. The smell of wet earth rises gently from the ground. Nearby, a wife quietly wakes beside fading embers. She kneels near the fire pit and carefully blows life back into sleeping coals. Smoke rises slowly. Small sparks glow orange inside the darkness. Soon, warmth begins to return to the room. She reaches for yesterday's bread. Hard now. Stale. Still useful. Nothing is wasted. Bread forms the center of daily life for many families. Dark bread made from barley or rye often fills hungry stomachs. Wealthier homes might have lighter wheat bread, softer and finer, but most people know rough textures and simple flavors. Sometimes there is porridge. Oats cooked slowly in water. Sometimes cheese. Sometimes onions. Sometimes little more than bread and quiet hunger. Morning meals are simple because the work ahead is heavy. Outside, animals are already moving. A chicken scratches at the dirt. A dog wanders sleepily between homes. Somewhere nearby, a cow shifts softly inside a wooden shelter. The farmer steps outside carrying worn tools. The air feels sharp. Cold dew rests on grass beneath his boots. Above him, dawn stretches slowly across the sky. And though the village is poor, though life is difficult, there is something peaceful in this early hour. No shouting. No hurry. Only morning arriving the same way it has for generations. The road through the village is little more than packed dirt. When rain comes, it turns thick with mud. Wheels sink deeply. Feet grow heavy. But now, in the calm of morning, it feels quiet. Thin smoke rises from rooftops. Doors begin to open. Neighbors nod softly to one another. There is little need for many words before sunrise. Everyone understands the shape of the day ahead. The farmer walks toward the fields. Beside him hangs a simple tool, worn smooth by years of use. Life in medieval Europe depends almost entirely upon land. The soil decides much. Good harvests mean fuller stomachs. Bad weather means worry. Too much rain can destroy crops. Too little rain can leave fields cracked and empty. And always there is uncertainty. Yet people continue. Because they must. The fields stretch quietly outside the village. Rows of earth wait beneath morning light. Sometimes wheat grows here. Sometimes rye. Sometimes barley or beans. The farmer begins his work. Slowly. Patiently. The movements are familiar now. Hands know the work better than thoughts do. Digging. Lifting. Checking soil. Repairing fences. Watching animals. Hours pass quietly beneath open skies. There are no clocks nearby. No bells marking every passing moment. Instead, people understand time through sunlight. The rising sun. The warmth of midday. The lengthening shadows of afternoon. The soft gold of evening. Life follows natural rhythms. In another part of the village, women carry water. Heavy wooden buckets swing gently beside them. Fetching water takes time. Rivers and wells are essential places. People gather there. Sometimes exchanging stories. Sometimes standing silently, tired before the day fully begins. Water is precious. Needed for cooking. Cleaning. Animals. Life itself. Nearby, bread dough waits beneath cloth. Someone kneads flour with tired hands. The smell of baking slowly fills cool morning air. Warm bread means comfort. Even simple meals carry quiet importance here. Children begin waking too. Though childhood exists, work begins early for many. A young boy may help his father repair tools. A girl may learn cooking, spinning wool, or caring for animals. Life teaches quickly. Responsibility arrives early. Yet moments of softness still appear. A child chasing chickens. Laughter near a stream. Quiet stories whispered beside fires after sunset. Even hard lives hold gentle moments. As morning becomes brighter, workshops begin to wake. The blacksmith's fire glows hot. Metal rings softly beneath steady hands. Sparks drift upward. The smell of smoke and iron settles heavily in the air. The blacksmith matters greatly here. Horseshoes. Nails. Farm tools. Simple repairs. Many lives quietly depend upon this work. Nearby, another worker shapes wood. A carpenter smooths rough edges. Hands steady. Movements careful. Wood becomes doors, stools, carts, and homes. Nothing is rushed. Everything takes time. Life itself moves slowly. Merchants sometimes pass through villages too. Traveling roads worn by weather and seasons. Carts creak beneath cloth bundles and barrels. A stranger arriving in town brings quiet excitement. News travels slowly in medieval Europe. Very slowly. A traveler may carry stories from places many villagers will never see. A distant city. A king's decision. A storm far away. A poor harvest elsewhere. The world feels both large and very small. Most people never travel far from where they are born. The village becomes their entire map. Its church. Its fields. Its river. Its roads. Its familiar faces. And somehow, this small world feels complete. By midday, the sun rises higher. Work continues. Bodies grow tired. Hands roughen. Feet ache. Still, there is little stopping. Fields demand effort. Animals require care. Wood must be gathered. Meals prepared. Clothing repaired. Daily life leaves little room for rest. Yet short pauses appear. A farmer wipes sweat from his forehead. Someone drinks cool water beside shade. Another tears bread in half and quietly eats. Silence often fills these moments. Not uncomfortable silence. Just tiredness. The kind shared between people who understand hard work. The afternoon stretches gently onward. Clouds drift overhead. Birds move quietly across open skies. Wind brushes through grass. Somewhere, church bells ring softly in the distance. The sound spreads slowly over fields. Steady. Familiar. Comforting. Religion quietly shapes everyday life here. Not always through grand ceremonies, but through habit. Prayer before meals. Crosses hung inside homes. Church gatherings. Holy days scattered through the year. Faith sits quietly beside ordinary work. Not separate from life, but woven gently into it. As evening slowly approaches, shadows lengthen across roads and fields. The day begins to soften. Workers return home carrying tiredness with them. Tools rest. Animals settle. Smoke rises once more from chimneys. Inside homes, supper begins. Stew cooks slowly over fires. Sometimes vegetables. Sometimes bits of meat if fortune allows. Often simple. Always precious. Wood crackles softly nearby. Faces glow orange in candlelight. Stories drip through tired rooms. Perhaps someone speaks of weather. A broken fence. Tomorrow's work. Nothing grand. Only ordinary life. And yet these small moments matter deeply. Because comfort lives here too. In warmth after cold labor. In familiar voices. In bread shared across rough wooden tables. Outside, darkness slowly returns. The village quiets. Animals settle into stillness. Stars appear overhead once more. The road grows empty. Windows dim. Candles burn low. People sleep early because tomorrow begins before dawn again. Inside homes, families gather close for warmth. Blankets feel rough. Rooms remain cool. The fire slowly fades. Bodies ache from labor. Still, sleep comes quickly. Heavy and deep. And outside, medieval Europe rests quietly beneath the night sky. The fields wait patiently for morning. The wind moves softly through empty roads. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl watches from a tree branch. The village sleeps. And tomorrow will arrive much like today. Quietly. Slowly. Without hurry. The same rhythms. The same labor. The same soft movement of ordinary lives carried gently through the turning seasons. Far away from kings and battles, most history lives here. In warm bread. In aching hands. In muddy roads. In quiet exhaustion beneath fading candlelight. And while the night grows deeper, another home settles into silence. Another family drifts into sleep. Another ordinary day quietly fades into memory. Morning arrives again without announcement. No trumpet sounds. No grand voice calls across the hills. Only a slow change in the sky. Darkness loosens its hold over the village little by little, and a pale gray light begins to rest softly over rooftops damp with morning dew. The air feels colder than it did the evening before. Thin mist lingers low across the fields, drifting quietly between fences and sleeping animals. Inside a small house near the edge of the village, a woman wakes before the others. The room is still. The fire has nearly gone out. Only a faint orange glow hides beneath soft gray ash. She sits quietly for a moment, listening. The slow breathing of children. The soft shifting of someone still asleep nearby. The faint sound of wind touching the walls. Morning begins gently here. There is no rushing. No sharp beginning. Only small movements in the darkness. She reaches for dry kindling stacked carefully near the hearth. Wood is precious. Everything useful is saved. Small branches, broken sticks, pieces left behind from larger work. Nothing goes easily to waste. Soon, careful hands bring warmth back into the room. Smoke curls upward. The familiar smell settles softly into the house. It lives in clothes here. In blankets. In hair. It clings to daily life so completely that perhaps few people even notice it anymore. Outside, the village slowly wakes again. A door creaks open. Footsteps move softly across damp ground. Somewhere nearby, a rooster speaks once more into the quiet morning. The sound feels ordinary. Expected. Part of the rhythm everyone understands. In one home, a boy rubs sleep from his eyes before pulling on rough clothes. His hands are small still, though already beginning to harden from work. He does not complain. Most children here learn quickly that every pair of hands matters. There are animals needing food, water to carry, wood to collect. Small jobs waiting before breakfast has even begun. Outside, he walks carefully across cool earth toward a chicken coop. Mist rests around him like soft cloth. The world feels quiet enough that he can hear distant crows and the gentle shifting of leaves overhead. He scatters feed slowly. The chickens move close, scratching the dirt with quick feet. Nearby, a pig rests heavily against a wooden fence. Not elegant. Not beautiful. Yet deeply important. Animals often mean survival. Food for winter. Trade for goods. Something valuable in uncertain times. Life feels fragile in many ways here. A poor season changes everything. A sickness passing through the village may leave silence where familiar voices once lived. Heavy rains may ruin fields. Cold winters may stretch longer than expected. And still, people rise each morning. Not because life is easy, but because life continues. Inside another home, breakfast begins. A pot hangs above soft flames. Porridge cooks slowly. Simple. Warm. Filling enough to quiet hunger for a while. Someone cuts yesterday's bread into pieces. Hard edges soften when dipped into broth or warm drink. Meals are rarely large. People eat what they have. And often what they have depends on weather, labor, and luck. Still, there is comfort in familiar food. The warmth of steam rising into cool air. The sound of quiet eating. The feeling of beginning another day together. Outside the village, fields wait beneath growing sunlight. A farmer walks slowly behind a wooden plow. His shoulders already ache. The work feels endless at times. Soil must be turned. Seeds planted carefully. Fences repaired. Animals watched closely. The body grows tired long before the day ends. Hands split from cold weather. Feet ache from standing. Backs bend lower with each passing year. Yet there is also rhythm here. The steady sound of movement. The feeling of earth beneath worn boots. The understanding that seasons turn slowly, and each day belongs to something larger. In spring, planting fills the hours. Summer brings heat and long days beneath open skies. Autumn asks for harvest. Winter asks for patience. The year moves gently forward like river water. Never hurried. Never still. At the center of many villages stands the church. Not always large. Sometimes small and plain. Stone walls weathered by years of wind and rain. Its bell carries across fields in quiet waves. People gather there for prayer, for comfort, for familiar faces. The church becomes more than a building. It becomes part of the shape of life itself. Births are celebrated there. Marriages spoken beneath candlelight. Loss carried through quiet ceremonies. Even ordinary afternoons seem somehow connected to its steady presence. Near the church road, a woman carries wool in careful hands. Spinning thread takes time. Almost everything does. Clothing cannot simply appear. Fabric must be made slowly. Wool cleaned. Spun. Woven. Stitched carefully into garments worn every day. Clothes are practical here. Simple. Heavy enough for cold weather. Useful enough for labor. Many own very little. 1 or 2 good garments may last years. Patches cover worn places. Careful sewing extends usefulness. Again and again, people repair rather than replace. Nearby, the village blacksmith begins another day. Heat rises from the forge. Metal glows orange beneath careful eyes. The sound of hammer against iron rings softly into the morning air. Steady. Rhythmic. Almost calming. Tools need fixing. Shoes for horses wear thin. Farming depends upon strong equipment. Without repair, hard work becomes even harder. The blacksmith's hands carry strength earned slowly over many years. Heat surrounds him. Smoke rises heavily. Still, the work continues. There is little room for rest. Farther down the road, a baker kneads dough with practiced hands. The smell of bread slowly spreads through the village. Warm. Comforting. Familiar. Perhaps no smell feels more welcoming than bread baking after a cold morning. People pause when they notice it. Only for a moment. Then work calls again. Always work. But sometimes small pleasures arrive quietly. A warm loaf. A patch of sunlight. A cool drink after heavy labor. A kind word shared unexpectedly. Life may be difficult, but comfort still finds its way into ordinary days. By afternoon, the roads become busier. A cart creaks slowly past. Wooden wheels complain against rough ground. Travel is difficult here. Roads often remain uneven and muddy. Rain changes everything. What seems passable one day becomes nearly impossible the next. Yet merchants still travel. Slowly. Patiently. Carrying cloth. Salt. Tools. Candles. Sometimes spices expensive enough that many villagers only hear stories about them. A traveler always brings curiosity. Children stare quietly. Adults ask gentle questions. News moves slowly in this world. Very slowly. A traveler may speak of distant weather. Markets far away. A lord changing rules somewhere beyond the hills. Sometimes the stories feel almost impossible. Places larger than anyone here can imagine. Buildings taller than village homes. Ships crossing waters few villagers will ever see. Still, by evening, most people return their attention to familiar things. Tomorrow's tasks. Animals needing care. The weather. The fields. Because distant stories feel less urgent than nearby hunger. As sunlight softens, workers return slowly toward home. The day settles into evening once more. Dust rises beneath tired footsteps. The sky turns pale gold. Birdsong begins to quiet. Animals shift toward rest. Inside homes, cooking begins again. Steam rises from pots. The smell of onions and herbs drifts through small rooms. Sometimes cabbage. Sometimes beans. Sometimes thick stew stretching simple ingredients as far as possible. Meals ask for patience. Nothing cooks quickly over open fire. People sit close to warmth while waiting. Hands rest after long hours. Faces soften with tiredness. Children grow sleepy. Outside, darkness begins arriving softly over the village. Candles glow in windows. Smoke drifts upward into cooling air. The world grows smaller at night. Roads disappear into shadow. Fields fade into darkness. People stay close to home. Stories often return in evening hours. Old memories. Simple lessons. Quiet laughter spoken low beside firelight. And sometimes silence feels enough. Not empty silence. Comfortable silence. The kind shared between people too tired for many words. One person repairs clothing beside the fire. Another sharpens a tool for tomorrow. Someone else simply rests, watching flames move gently, listening to the crackle of wood, feeling warmth after cold wind and long work. Above the village, stars slowly gather again, bright and steady, untouched by noise, untouched by hurry. The same stars watched by countless tired workers before sleep. A farmer stretches aching muscles before lying down. Tomorrow will begin early again. There is comfort in knowing what tomorrow holds, even when the work is hard. Fields, animals, food, labor, rest. Then morning once more. The rhythm remains steady, like footsteps worn into an old path. Familiar, quiet, enduring. And as another night settles gently over medieval Europe, the village breathes softly in the darkness. Candles burn lower. Doors close against cold air. The last sounds of the evening slowly disappear. Only wind remains, moving softly over empty roads, past sleeping homes, across quiet fields waiting patiently for another dawn. Night rests quietly over the village. The darkness feels soft now, familiar rather than frightening. Most homes have gone still. Fires have settled into low orange embers, glowing faintly beneath pale ash. Outside, the roads sit empty beneath moonlight, worn smooth by countless footsteps that have long since gone indoors. The world feels smaller at night. Fields disappear into shadow. Trees become quiet shapes against the sky. Far away, perhaps a dog barks once into the distance, then falls silent again. Inside one small home, a family sleeps close together. Warmth matters here. During colder seasons, bodies rest near one another beneath rough blankets stuffed with straw, wool, or scraps of cloth. The walls do little to stop winter winds, and even in gentler weather, cool air finds small ways to enter. The house itself is simple. A single room for many families. Sometimes animals shelter nearby, especially in poorer homes, where warmth from livestock becomes useful during cold nights. The smell is familiar. Smoke from the hearth mixes with damp wood, old straw, cooked meals, and earth beneath worn feet. No one expects luxury here. Only shelter. Only enough. And for most people, enough feels like something worth quietly hoping for. Hours pass gently. The moon moves slowly overhead. Then, before sunrise arrives, movement begins again. Not quickly. Never quickly. A woman stirs beneath blankets and opens tired eyes into darkness. Morning has not fully arrived yet, but work waits patiently, as it always does. There is bread to prepare, water to carry, clothes to mend, children to wake, animals to feed. The rhythm of life returns before daylight itself. She moves carefully through the room so as not to wake everyone too early. The hearth sleeps quietly now. Cold. Silent. She kneels beside it and reaches for dry twigs gathered the day before. Fire asks for patience. A careful hand. A steady breath. Soon enough, smoke rises again. Then warmth. Then light. Only a little at first. Enough to soften the darkness inside the room. Outside, the sky begins its slow change. Gray touches the edges of morning. Mist settles over distant fields. Grass bends beneath tiny drops of water shining quietly in early light. The village wakes one house at a time. Doors open. Footsteps begin. Someone coughs softly in the cold air. A wooden cart creaks nearby. The day begins before the sun fully appears. A farmer walks toward his animals carrying feed in worn hands. He knows every sound they make. The low breathing of cows. The quiet movement of chickens scratching at dirt. The restless shifting of a horse inside a wooden shelter. Animals require care before anything else. Always. Without healthy animals, life becomes harder. A weak ox means slower plowing. Fewer eggs mean less food. A sick cow brings worry. Everything connects here. Every task matters. Nearby, another villager heads toward the well. The path is familiar. So familiar that feet almost know the way without thought. Morning air feels cool against tired skin. The village remains mostly quiet except for small sounds beginning to gather. A bucket lowering into water. The rustle of straw. Soft conversation spoken low between neighbors still waking. Water feels heavy when carried home. Heavy enough to tire arms before breakfast even begins. Yet there is no complaint. Only habit. Only the understanding that this is simply how life moves. Back inside homes, breakfast waits. Simple again. Always simple. A small piece of bread. Warm porridge. Perhaps milk if fortune allows. Sometimes cheese. Sometimes nothing more than yesterday's bread softened in broth. People eat slowly when food is scarce. Carefully. Making simple meals stretch as far as possible. Children sit sleepily near fires. Hair untidy. Eyes heavy. The youngest still wrapped in blankets while older children prepare for work beside adults. There are very few truly idle days here. Even children carry responsibility. A young girl may gather herbs. Sweep the floor. Help knead bread. A young boy may carry wood. Watch animals. Learn the shape of work through quiet repetition. Life teaches through doing. Lessons come from tired hands and careful watching. The village itself begins to brighten beneath morning sun. Smoke rises gently from rooftops. Birds settle onto fences. The road through the village grows busier now. A farmer carrying tools. A woman with folded cloth. A carpenter pushing wood upon a cart. Everything moves slowly. Nobody hurries. The body learns not to waste energy. Work lasts long hours. Strength must be saved where possible. At the edge of the village, fields stretch outward beneath soft light. This is where much of life unfolds. Long days beneath changing skies. Hands endured. Backs bent low. The work depends upon season. In spring, there is planting. Careful hope pressed into dark soil. Seeds buried with patience. The quiet wish that weather may remain kind. Summer brings warmth. Sometimes gentle. Sometimes heavy and exhausting. Sunlight stretches longer across fields, asking for more labor beneath growing heat. Sweat gathers beneath rough clothing. Hands grow sore. Still, the crops need tending. Always tending. Autumn feels different. Busy in another way. Harvest season asks much from everyone. Food for winter depends upon these weeks. Families work together gathering grain, vegetables, and whatever the land has offered. Evening arrives with deep tiredness then. The kind that settles into muscles and stays there. Winter slows some things. But not everything. Cold changes the shape of labor rather than ending it. Wood must be gathered. Clothes repaired. Food stretched carefully. Animals watched closely. Long nights settle over the village. Candles burn low to save precious wax. People gather close to warmth. Stories grow important during colder evenings. Not grand stories always. Sometimes simple ones. A memory. A lesson. Something someone heard long ago. Voices sound softer near firelight. Outside, wind brushes gently against walls. And indoors, tiredness settles over everyone like a heavy blanket. But for now, this morning still belongs to work. Near the center of the village, the blacksmith's workshop grows warm. The fire burns brighter here than anywhere else. Metal glows beneath careful hands. The steady ringing of hammer against iron rises into the air. Not harsh. Not hurried. Just rhythmic. Predictable. The blacksmith works quietly. Repairing tools worn thin from labor. A bent blade. A broken hinge. A dull farming tool asking for another season of use. Few things are easily replaced. Everything must last. Nearby, another worker shapes wood with slow patience. The carpenter knows every knot and grain. Wood becomes tables, stools, barrels, doors. Simple things perhaps, yet deeply important to everyday life. Nothing arrives already made. Everything takes effort. Everything asks for time. Around midday, sunlight grows warmer. Workers pause when they can. Perhaps beneath shade. Perhaps sitting against a fence. A piece of bread in hand. A sip of cool water. Silence often stays closed during these moments. There is comfort in resting without needing conversation. The body speaks clearly enough through aching muscles and tired feet. Sometimes someone laughs quietly. A small joke. A memory shared. But mostly, rest feels precious enough on its own. Above them, clouds drift slowly. Birds move across open skies. The afternoon stretches gently forward. In homes, meals begin slowly again. Stew bubbles quietly over fire. The smell of onions drifts through the room. Perhaps cabbage. Beans. Herbs gathered nearby. Whatever can be grown or saved. Food feels practical here. Necessary. Rarely extravagant. But warm meals after hard work bring quiet comfort. Especially when cold weather arrives. A merchant appears on the road sometime later. Dust gathers behind slow wheels. Children notice first. They always do. A traveler means something different. Something new. People step outside for a moment. Curious. The merchant carries cloth, candles, small tools, perhaps salt wrapped carefully away. Trade happens slowly. Words exchanged carefully. Coins matter. Everything matters. Most people cannot buy much. Still, looking costs nothing. Stories travel with merchants too. News from distant places arrives in pieces. A town farther away suffering poor harvest. A road damaged by weather. Perhaps word of a local lord or gathering market. The wider world feels distant here. Almost dreamlike. Most villagers will live and die near the same roads they walked as children. And perhaps that feels natural. Comfort lives inside familiar places. The same trees. The same river. The same bell sounding softly across the fields. By evening, shadows lengthen once more. The village grows slower. Quieter. Animals settle. Workers return home. The sky softens into gold and pale blue. Smoke rises from chimneys again. Inside homes, firelight returns. Faces glow warmly beside moving flames. Someone repairs a torn sleeve. Someone sharpens a knife carefully. A child grows sleepy beside the hearth. Dinner stretches quietly through tired conversation. The work of tomorrow already waits nearby, even if no one speaks of it. Outside, darkness settles softly over rooftops. Stars slowly appear. The road empties. The fields disappear once more into shadow. Candles burn lower. Voices soften. Then fade. And little by little, the village drifts towards sleep again. Held gently between one ordinary day and the next. A life made not of grand moments, but of steady ones. Warm bread. Cold mornings. Aching hands. Shared meals. The slow turning of seasons beneath patient skies. And somewhere beyond the dark fields, morning already waits quietly for its turn to arrive. Before morning fully arrives, the village rests in one of its quietest hours. The sky above remains deep and dark, though somewhere far beyond the hills, dawn is already beginning its slow journey closer. The stars still linger overhead, soft and steady, watching over empty roads and sleeping rooftops. Nothing feels hurried here. Night fades slowly in medieval Europe. It slips away gently, almost unnoticed. Inside a small cottage near the edge of the village, someone shifts beneath heavy blankets. The air feels cold enough to make leaving sleep difficult. Yet morning labor waits patiently, just as it always has. A farmer wakes first. He lies still for a moment. His body reminds him of yesterday. A sore shoulder. Stiff knees. Hands rough from tools and weather. Hard work leaves its quiet marks over time. Even young workers grow tired. Older workers simply learn how to carry the feeling more gently. Nearby, embers still glow softly beneath gray ash. The room smells faintly of smoke and damp wood. There is comfort in familiar smells. Comfort in routine. Even when life feels uncertain, routine offers something steady to hold. Soon enough, careful hands stir the fire awake again. Dry twigs crackle softly. A small flame grows. Orange light slowly spreads across the room, touching wooden walls and worn blankets. The house is simple. A stool near the fire. A wooden table uneven from years of use. Clay bowls stacked carefully nearby. Nothing grand. Nothing wasted. Most belongings carry purpose. Every object matters because replacing things is difficult. A cracked bowl might still serve for years. A patched shirt might last through many winters. Repair becomes part of daily life. Mending. Fixing. Saving. Using things until there is almost nothing left to give. Outside, dawn finally begins to show itself. Gray skies soften into pale silver. Mist settles low over nearby fields. The world feels quiet enough to hear small things. Water dripping slowly from leaves. A distant rooster greeting the morning. Footsteps somewhere across the village road. One by one, homes begin waking. A door opens softly. Someone carries firewood. Another heads toward the well before sunrise fully arrives. The village moves like a slow tide. Steady. Predictable. Gentle. In one home, a mother kneads dough for bread. Her hands move without needing much thought. Press. Fold. Turn. Repeat. Years of practice have made the movement familiar. The smell of flour rests quietly in the air. Nearby, a small child sits wrapped in warmth, still half asleep. Morning begins softly for children too. Though soon enough, many small hands will join the work waiting outside. Breakfast remains simple. Always simple. A piece of coarse bread. Warm oats if grain allows. Perhaps milk. Perhaps cheese. Sometimes only enough to quiet hunger until midday. Yet people rarely expect more. Simple meals feel ordinary. Normal. The comfort comes not from variety, but from knowing there is food at all. After eating, the village slowly spreads outward into the day. Farmers move toward fields carrying worn tools. Women gather baskets or water buckets. Children follow behind older family members. Work begins early because daylight feels precious. Especially during colder seasons, when darkness arrives sooner than anyone wishes. The fields beyond the village already shimmer with dew. Grass bends beneath tiny drops of moisture catching early light. Birdsong rises gently from nearby trees. A breeze brushes quietly through open land. The beauty of morning often arrives unnoticed here. Not because people cannot see it, but because work asks for attention first. Still, perhaps someone pauses for half a moment. A farmer standing still before beginning. A worker lifting tired eyes toward the sky. Noticing soft clouds moving overhead. Feeling cool air before heat arrives. Then work begins again. Slow. Steady. Necessary. Today, one farmer checks fencing damaged during the night. Wood shifts with weather. Animals press against weak places. Repair never truly ends. Nearby, another worker leads oxen slowly across soil. The movement feels heavy. Patient. The earth opens beneath the plow, one careful row at a time. There are no fast days here. Everything asks for effort. Time stretches differently in this world. A task may take hours. Sometimes days. Sometimes seasons. The work continues because there is little choice. Yet there is something deeply human in these repeated motions. Planting. Gathering. Building. Repairing. The same quiet labor repeated across generations. Hands learning from hands. Parents teaching children. Neighbors helping neighbors. Knowledge carried gently through ordinary days. Back in the village, smoke rises steadily from cooking fires. The baker has already begun work. The smell of fresh bread slowly drifts into nearby streets. Warm. Soft. Comforting. Few smells feel more welcoming than bread after cold morning air. People passing nearby notice it quietly. Perhaps someone smiles without meaning to. Small comforts matter. A warm loaf. A dry blanket. A peaceful evening. In difficult lives, simple things grow meaningful. Near the center of the village, the blacksmith's forge glows bright despite the cool morning. Heat gathers heavily there. Metal waits upon the fire. The blacksmith works with calm concentration. Hammer striking iron. Again. Then again. Steady sounds filling the air. A broken tool waits for repair. A bent horseshoe rests nearby. Farming depends upon strong tools. Without them, labor grows harder. Longer. More exhausting. And so the forge remains important. Its warmth steady through changing seasons. Nearby, someone spins wool near an open doorway. Hands move patiently, twisting fibers into thread. The task takes time. Almost everything here does. Clothing cannot simply appear. Each garment begins slowly. Wool cleaned. Spun. Woven. Sewn. Patched again later when worn thin. A single cloak may last many years. A pair of shoes repaired again and again until little remains of the original leather. Objects grow old beside the people using them. By late morning, the village feels fully awake. Voices drift softly through the air. Not loud. Not hurried. Someone speaks near the well. Another calls gently to wandering chickens. A cart creaks down the road carrying wood. Dogs wander between homes searching for warmth or scraps. Life feels busy, yet never rushed. Time belongs to sunlight. Nothing more. Around midday, workers pause briefly. Only briefly. A farmer sits beneath a tree. Bread in hand. Perhaps cheese wrapped in cloth. Cool water offered by shade. Rest settles softly into tired muscles. Nearby, another worker removes boots for only a moment. Feet ache. Shoulders feel heavy. The body grows tired long before sunset. Still, no one expects otherwise. Hard labor feels ordinary. It belongs to life. The afternoon arrives slowly. Sunlight grows warmer. Dust lifts gently from roads. Children carry bundles of sticks gathered for firewood. A woman hangs cloth to dry in moving air. Someone repairs a cartwheel with careful patience. Nothing stands still. Even quiet villages move constantly beneath the surface. 1,000 small tasks holding everyday life together. Far away, church bells drift softly through open air. The sound travels slowly across fields. Familiar. Steady. Comforting. People pause when they hear it. Only for a moment. A reminder of time passing. A reminder of something larger than daily worries. Faith sits quietly beside ordinary life here. Not loud. Not dramatic. Simply present. Like weather. Like seasons. Like the turning of daylight into evening. And eventually, evening does arrive. Always gently. The sky begins changing color. Blue softens toward gold. Shadows stretch longer over roads and gardens. The work of the day slowly begins to loosen its hold. Workers return home carrying tools and tiredness. Animals settle into shelter. Smoke rises once more from village rooftops. Inside homes, warmth returns. Soup simmers over low flames. Bread breaks apart into waiting hands. Simple meals feel earned after long hours. Faces soften beside firelight. Children lean sleepily against tired parents. Someone mends torn clothing. Someone sharpens a blade for tomorrow. Outside, darkness gathers quietly once more. Stars appear above the village. The roads grow still. Windows dim. Voices fade. And slowly, carefully, another ordinary day settles into silence. No grand history written here. No great celebration. Only life as most people knew it. Hard work. Shared meals. Cold mornings. Warm fires. The soft comfort of familiar faces at the end of a tiring day. And somewhere beyond sleeping fields, tomorrow waits patiently again. The night settles deeply over the village once again. By now, the warmth of the evening fire has faded in many homes, leaving only soft embers glowing quietly beneath thin layers of ash. Outside, the roads are empty except for the gentle movement of wind drifting through narrow paths between cottages. Nothing moves quickly here at night. The world grows still. Even the animals seem quieter now. A horse shifts softly in its shelter. Chickens rest with heads tucked beneath feathers. Somewhere far away, perhaps an owl calls once into the darkness before silence gently returns. The sky above stretches wide and calm. Clouds drift slowly across the moon. Stars shimmer quietly, untouched by hurry or noise. For most people in medieval Europe, sleep comes early. Days are long. Bodies grow tired. There is little candlelight to spare for staying awake. And so villages settle into darkness not long after evening meals are finished. Inside one small house, a family sleeps close together against the cold. The youngest child curls beneath patched blankets beside older siblings. A father rests heavily after a day spent behind the plow. Nearby, a mother sleeps lightly, already knowing tomorrow's work will begin before sunrise. Even sleep feels practical here. Necessary. The body asks for rest because tomorrow will demand strength again. Outside, time moves quietly. Hours pass without notice. The moon travels slowly overhead. Then, almost without warning, morning begins to gather at the edges of the world. At first, it is difficult to notice. Only the faintest change in the darkness. A softness in the eastern sky. A gentle shift in the cold air. Then slowly, carefully, another day arrives. Before sunrise, the village rests in a quiet half-sleep. Not fully awake. Not fully dreaming. A rooster breaks the silence first. Then another farther away answers. Soon enough, movement begins. A door opens. Footsteps touch damp earth. Someone coughs softly into the cold morning air. The rhythm begins again. Inside one cottage, a woman kneels beside the hearth. Her hands know the routine so well that little thought is needed. Wood. Kindling. Careful breath. Flame. Soon, smoke curls upward through dim morning shadows. Orange light begins to touch familiar corners of the room. A wooden stool. Clay pots. A rough table worn smooth by years of meals, repairs, and quiet evenings. The smell of smoke feels comforting now. Familiar. A sign that warmth is returning. Nearby, bread from yesterday waits wrapped in cloth. Hard at the edges. Still useful. Nothing is thrown away easily. People learn to stretch what they have. A loaf baked days earlier may still appear at the table. Soup may become tomorrow's meal. Old clothing becomes patches for newer tears. Life teaches patience with small things. Outside, the village slowly wakes beneath pale gray skies. Mist settles low over fields and gardens. The air feels cool enough to sting tired hands. Yet there is beauty here too. Though perhaps unnoticed by busy workers. The way sunlight slowly reaches rooftops. The sound of birds waking in distant trees. The smell of damp earth after a quiet night. Morning belongs to workers. And most people here are workers. Farmers. Millers. Builders. Servants. Blacksmiths. Bakers. People whose hands shape ordinary life quietly and steadily. At the village well, early footsteps gather. Buckets creak against rope. Water splashes softly below. Neighbors greet one another with few words. No one seems fully awake yet. Faces still carry sleep. Bodies already carry tiredness left behind from yesterday. And still, the day asks to begin. A woman lifts heavy buckets carefully. Water weighs more than people sometimes expect. Carrying it home becomes part of daily strength. Again and again. Day after day. The same road walked countless times. Familiar enough to feel almost invisible. Back inside homes, breakfast begins. Simple food waits upon rough wooden tables. Warm porridge when grain allows. Bread softened in broth. Sometimes cheese. Perhaps onions. Maybe milk from nearby animals. The meal feels quiet. People eat because work waits. Not because there is leisure for lingering. A young boy listens while his father speaks softly about repairing a broken fence. An older child prepares to help gather wood later. A mother reminds someone to check the chickens. Responsibility lives everywhere here. Even small hands matter. Especially during busy seasons. Soon, workers move outward into the day. Fields begin calling again. The village road grows busy with steady footsteps. A farmer carries tools across one shoulder. A woman walks toward the river carrying cloth for washing. Someone pulls a cart filled with supplies for repair work. Everything moves slowly. No rushing. No wasted energy. Long days teach patience. Near the fields, dew still rests upon grass. The sunlight grows warmer now. Clouds drip gently overhead. A farmer bends low to inspect young crops. Weather matters deeply. Perhaps more than anything else. Too much rain brings trouble. Too little rain brings worry. Strong winds damage fields. Cold mornings linger too long. The land decides much about life. People work hard, but nature still speaks loudly here. And so many workers glance often toward the sky. Watching clouds. Feeling wind. Wondering quietly what tomorrow may bring. In another part of the village, the mill slowly wakes. The miller begins work before many others have fully settled into their morning. Grain waits patiently in sacks. Families depend upon flour. Flour becomes bread. And bread becomes survival. The turning wheel moves steadily beside running water. Slow. Predictable. The sound feels almost peaceful. Water rushing gently nearby. Wood creaking softly. Stone grinding grain little by little. Everything in medieval Europe seems to move at its own careful pace. Nothing feels rushed. Not because life is easy. But because speed changes very little. Work still asks for time. The body still tires. The day still stretches long. By midday, warmth settles more heavily over the village. Workers pause where they can. A farmer sits beneath shade for only a few moments. Bread rests in rough hands. Sweat cools slowly in the breeze. Nearby, someone drinks water quietly while staring across open fields. The pause feels brief, yet important. Rest arrives in small pieces. Never enough perhaps, but enough to continue. Children still working nearby sometimes steal softer moments. A laugh between chores. A chase after wandering chickens. A quiet game invented beside stacks of hay. Even difficult lives make room for small joys. The afternoon continues. The village hums gently beneath sunlight. Metal rings from the blacksmith's workshop. Wood shavings gather near the carpenter's bench. The smell of bread drifts faintly through warm air. Dogs sleep lazily near doorways. An old woman repairs torn fabric beneath sunlight falling through an open doorway. Needle moving slowly. Patiently. Thread through cloth. Patch over patch. Useful things deserve care. Nothing easily replaced is treated carelessly. As shadows begin growing longer, people slowly feel evening approaching. The body notices first. Tired feet. Heavy shoulders. Hands stiff from labor. The sky changes softly overhead. Golden light settles across fields. Dust rises gently beneath returning footsteps. Workers begin moving home. Animals are fed. Tools stored carefully away. Doors open once more. Smoke rises from chimneys. And somewhere nearby, supper begins again. Soup bubbling quietly. Bread shared. Simple food after hard work. The warmth of fire touching tired faces. Children growing sleepy beside familiar voices. Outside, the village grows quieter little by little. The road empties. Stars slowly return overhead. Windows dim behind soft candlelight. The world becomes smaller once more. Safer somehow. Closer. Held gently inside darkness. And as another ordinary day drifts softly toward sleep, the village settles into stillness again. Tomorrow already waits patiently beyond the hills. Another morning. Another fire to light. Another loaf of bread. Another quiet rhythm of work and rest beneath slow-moving skies. Before the first light of morning touches the village, there is a quiet hour that belongs almost entirely to silence. The roads are still. The fields rest beneath a thin silver mist. The rooftops, dark and uneven beneath the fading stars, seem to breathe softly in the cool air of night. Nothing asks to be hurried here. The world waits. Even the wind moves gently. It brushes against fences and narrow paths, carrying the faint smell of damp soil and old smoke lingering from fires that burned the evening before. Inside one cottage, sleep begins to loosen its hold. A farmer opens tired eyes into darkness. For a moment, he remains still. The blanket feels warm. The room feels cold beyond it. Outside, morning has not yet arrived, and yet the body already understands the hour. Years of labor teach people to wake before sunrise. No clock rests nearby. No bell has sounded. Only habit. Only the quiet understanding that work waits. Slowly, carefully, he rises. The wooden floor creaks beneath tired feet. His joints feel stiff from yesterday's labor. Back sore. Hands aching. Shoulders heavy. Hard work settles into the body like weather. At first it feels sharp. Later, familiar. Eventually, simply part of living. Nearby, someone stirs the sleeping hearth. A wife kneels beside fading embers, brushing ash gently aside. The room is dark enough that even small sparks seem bright. Dry twigs crack softly. Smoke rises. Then warmth begins its slow return. The smell feels comforting. Wood smoke belongs to nearly every home here. It settles into clothing. Into blankets. Into the walls themselves. A quiet companion to ordinary life. Soon, faint orange light touches the corners of the room. Clay bowls sit waiting upon a shelf. A rough wooden table stands near the fire. Simple things. Worn smooth by use. Everything here carries marks of time. Scratches. Cracks. Repairs made carefully years before. Nothing feels new for long. Objects grow old beside the people who use them. Outside, darkness slowly begins to soften. The stars fade one by one. Mist drifts low across open land. The village rests inside a pale blue stillness that belongs only to early morning. Then, softly, the first rooster speaks into the quiet. Not loudly. Just enough to remind the sleeping world that another day has arrived. A dog wanders lazily across the road. Somewhere nearby, a cart wheel shifts against wood. A door opens. Then another. The village wakes little by little. Never suddenly. Always gently. At the village well, footsteps begin to gather. Buckets swing quietly in tired hands. Water waits below, cold and still. Women pull heavy ropes slowly, careful not to waste effort. The work feels ordinary now. Daily. Yet never easy. Water touches nearly every part of life. Cooking. Washing. Animals. Drinking. Cleaning wounds. Without it, nothing moves smoothly. A young girl carries a smaller bucket beside her mother. She walks carefully. Trying not to spill. Trying to help. Childhood here often grows beside responsibility. Children learn by watching. By doing. By carrying small pieces of work until they become ready for larger ones. No lesson feels separate from life itself. Nearby, morning fires glow brighter behind cottage windows. Breakfast begins. Simple as always. Warm oats if grain remains. Bread, rough and dark. Perhaps a bit of cheese. A little milk. Maybe broth saved from yesterday. Meals ask for gratitude because certainty feels rare. A poor harvest changes everything. A long winter stretches supplies thin. People eat carefully. Nothing wasted. Nothing taken lightly. At one table, a family eats mostly in silence. Not unhappy silence. Only sleepy silence. The kind carried by people still waking. Someone tears bread into smaller pieces for younger children. Another checks tools resting near the doorway. Already thinking ahead to work waiting outside. Soon enough, the village road begins filling with movement. Farmers head toward open fields. A carpenter pushes a cart stacked with wood. A woman walks toward the river carrying clothing bundled for washing. The baker's fire burns steadily now. Warm bread slowly begins filling the air with its comforting smell. People passing nearby notice it. Perhaps without even realizing. A familiar scent soft enough to feel like reassurance. The morning feels cool still, though sunlight slowly begins reaching rooftops and gardens. Birds move through nearby trees. Clouds drift quietly overhead. The day stretches ahead patiently. Long and full. At the edge of the village, fields spread outward beneath soft light. Here, much of life unfolds. Rows of crops. Wooden fences. Patches of soil worked carefully by tired hands. A farmer kneels to inspect seedlings pushing gently through earth. Tiny signs of hope. Small green beginnings asking for patience. Growing food feels uncertain work. Too much rain harms crops. Too little sun weakens them. Storms arrive unexpectedly. Cold lingers too long. And still, people plant. Always planting. Because hope belongs to labor here. Nearby, an older farmer repairs a broken section of fence. Hands move slowly now. Age changes the pace of work. But not the need for it. Wood creaks softly as he lifts it into place. A younger worker helps without needing many words. Most tasks here feel shared. Neighbors helping neighbors. Families working side by side. Quiet understanding matters more than conversation. At the village forge, heat already gathers heavily. The blacksmith wipes sweat from his forehead despite the cool morning outside. Fire glows bright. Metal waits. Hammer meets iron with steady rhythm. Again. 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 The sound drifts softly through nearby streets like part of the village itself. Someone waits patiently for a repaired plow blade. Another needs horseshoes. Tools matter deeply. Without strong tools, fields become harder to work. Hard days become harder still. Nearby, the carpenter shapes rough wood into useful things. Nothing decorative. Mostly practical. A stool. A repair for someone's cart. Wooden handles for tools worn thin. The smell of fresh cut wood mixes gently with smoke drifting through the village air. Everything feels connected. The baker depends on grain. The farmer depends on tools. The blacksmith depends on steady work. The village moves together, quietly holding itself upright through countless ordinary tasks. By midday, sunlight grows warmer. Workers pause where they can. Not long. Only long enough. A farmer sits against a tree, removing his cap for a moment. Bread rests beside him. A little cheese wrapped in cloth. Cool water from earlier. His body feels heavy now. Morning labor settles into tired muscles. Still, the quiet pause feels good. Wind brushes gently through grass. Clouds move overhead without hurry. Somewhere nearby, birds sing softly. For a moment, the day feels still. Peaceful. Then slowly, work begins again. Afternoon arrives with softer light. Dust rises gently from roads. Children gather sticks for evening fires. Someone leads animals toward fresh grass. A woman hangs damp cloth in warm air. At the riverbank, laundry continues slowly. Hands scrubbing fabric against stone. Voices low and familiar. The sound of moving water nearby. There is comfort in routine. Even tiring routines. Knowing what the day asks. Knowing what tomorrow will likely ask too. As sunlight begins to soften, the village slowly changes shape again. Workers return. Fields empty. The sound of tools fades. Smoke rises from chimneys. Evening gathers gently over rooftops. Inside homes, supper begins. A pot simmers over open flame. Soup stretches simple ingredients into something filling. Cabbage perhaps. Beans. Bits of root vegetables. Bread shared between tired hands. Warmth slowly returns to cold rooms. The youngest children grow sleepy first. Heads growing heavy. Eyes drifting shut beside firelight. Adults sit quietly for a while. One person mends clothing. Another sharpens tools for morning. Someone simply watches flames move softly in silence. Outside, stars begin appearing overhead once more. The village road empties. Night returns patiently. Familiar. Steady. And little by little, another ordinary day settles softly into darkness. The fields rest again. The animals grow quiet. Candles burn lower. The wind moves gently through sleeping paths. And tomorrow, somewhere beyond the night, already waits its quiet turn. Morning returns in the same quiet way it always has. No one in the village speaks of beginnings. No one marks the day with ceremony. The sky simply softens. Darkness slowly gives way to pale gray light, and the world wakes one careful moment at a time. Mist rests low over the fields again. The rooftops still hold traces of cool night air. Thin smoke begins rising gently from a few chimneys as the first fires are stirred back to life. The village breathes awake. Slowly. Steadily. Like someone opening tired eyes after deep sleep. Inside a small cottage near the center of the village, a woman sits beside the hearth before sunrise. The room still feels cold. Her hands move quietly, almost without thought. Kindling first. Then smaller branches. A careful breath against sleeping embers. Soon enough, orange warmth begins glowing softly in the dark. The room changes little by little. Shadows retreat. The smell of smoke grows familiar again. A wooden spoon rests beside yesterday's cooking pot. Nearby, wool blankets lie folded after sleep. The house carries the gentle signs of ordinary living. Worn edges. Small repairs. Simple objects used again and again. Nothing grand. Only useful things. A bowl cracked years ago but still holding soup. A stool repaired many times. A cloak hanging near the door, patched carefully against winter winds. People here know how to keep things alive. Not only crops or animals, but objects too. Life asks for patience. Patience with weather. Patience with labor. Patience with worn things that still have work left in them. Outside, dawn spreads farther across the village. The road begins to wake. A man carrying tools walks quietly toward the fields. His boots press softly into damp ground. Birdsong rises faintly from nearby trees. The air feels cool enough to wake the body fully. There is something peaceful about this early hour. Before the village grows busy. Before the day feels heavy. Only soft sounds. Footsteps. Wind. A distant rooster greeting morning. At the well, familiar faces gather again. Buckets lowered carefully into dark water. Rope creaking softly. Neighbors exchange quiet greetings. Nothing hurried. Most people have known one another for years. Perhaps their whole lives. There is comfort in familiarity. The same voices. The same roads. The same routines returning with the sunrise. Nearby, children begin their own mornings. A young boy pulls on clothes still smelling faintly of earth from yesterday's work. His hands are already roughening despite his age. He helps feed animals before breakfast. Not because someone demands it harshly. Simply because work belongs to everyone here. The chickens wait. The goat needs water. Wood must be brought closer to the fire. Even small tasks matter. Especially small tasks. A village depends upon many quiet efforts happening at once. Inside another home, breakfast waits. Dark bread sliced carefully. Porridge steaming softly. Perhaps a little butter if fortune has been kind. The family gathers close to warmth while eating. The youngest child still half asleep. An older daughter already thinking ahead to washing clothes later in the day. The father quietly checks a worn farming tool resting near the doorway. A loose handle. A crack needing repair. Small problems become larger if ignored. Life teaches people to notice things early. Before weather worsens. Before wood splits further. Before illness grows serious. The body itself feels watched closely here. People understand tiredness. They understand pain. A sore back from work. Hands split from cold weather. Heavy legs after harvest days. Illness comes quietly sometimes. A fever. A cough. A weakness that lingers too long. Without modern comforts, rest matters deeply. So do herbs. Warm broth. The careful attention of family. Yet even tired bodies often continue working. Because fields do not wait. Animals do not wait. Winter certainly does not wait. By morning, the village spreads into motion once more. The blacksmith's fire burns bright. The steady ringing of hammer against iron rises through cool air. Metal sparks softly beneath practiced hands. The forge feels warm even from a distance. Someone arrives carrying a broken farming blade. Another waits for repairs to a cartwheel. The blacksmith nods quietly. Work never seems to end. Nearby, the carpenter shapes wood beneath open sky. Long curls of shaved wood gather near his feet. His hands move slowly. Carefully. Nothing rushed. Mistakes cost time. And time matters. Especially when winter feels closer than expected. Near the baker's home, warm air carries the smell of fresh bread. Perhaps the most comforting smell in the village. Bread belongs to nearly every meal. Simple. Reliable. A sign that another ordinary day has begun. People passing nearby slow slightly without meaning to. The scent feels warm against cool morning air. A quiet promise of food after hard work. Outside the village, fields stretch endlessly beneath soft clouds. Farmers bend low to work soil darkened by dew. A woman gathers herbs near the edge of a path. Someone repairs a wooden fence weakened by rain. Farther away, oxen pull slowly through the earth. Their movements heavy and patient. Nothing here happens quickly. The land asks for slowness. For effort repeated day after day. Hands planting seeds. Hands pulling weeds. Hands gathering harvest. The same motions carried through seasons and generations. A farmer pauses for only a moment. Straightening his aching back. Looking across open land. The sky above feels wide. Quiet. Birds drift lazily overhead. Wind brushes softly through grain. Then work begins again. Because there is always more to do. At the riverbank, another kind of labor unfolds. Women kneel beside water, washing clothing carefully against smooth stones. The river moves gently nearby. It sounds soft and steady. Almost sleepy. Cloth twists between tired hands. Voices drift quietly through cool air. Simple conversations. News of weather. Children. A neighbor recovering from illness. The ordinary pieces of life shared softly beside moving water. Children sometimes play nearby when work allows. Skipping stones. Chasing one another through grass. Laughing for brief moments before chores call them back again. Even difficult lives hold room for small happiness. The village mill turns steadily not far away. Wood creaks. Water rushes beneath the wheel. Grain becomes flour little by little. Slowly. Always slowly. People wait patiently because waiting belongs to life here. A hurried world feels impossible to imagine. Everything asks for time. Bread. Clothing. Buildings. Food. Even healing. The afternoon grows warmer. Sunlight settles gently across rooftops and fields. Workers pause when they can. Bread shared beneath shade. Water passed carefully between tired hands. Feet resting briefly. Shoulders relaxing only for a moment. The body grows heavy during long afternoons. Especially after many seasons of labor. An older farmer rests against a fence for a while. Hands folded quietly. Watching younger workers move across nearby fields. Perhaps remembering years when his own steps felt lighter. Though even now, work still waits for him too. No one truly escapes labor here. Evening eventually arrives as it always does. Quietly. The sky softens toward gold. Clouds drift slowly above darkening fields. Animals return toward shelter. The village road fills again with tired footsteps heading home. Inside cottages, fires wake once more. Soup warms slowly over flames. The smell of onions and herbs drifts into cool evening air. Candles flicker softly against wooden walls. Children sit sleepily near the fire. Someone repairs torn cloth. Someone sharpens a blade for tomorrow. A family shares bread in peaceful silence. Outside, the village slowly becomes still. The well grows quiet. The forge cools. The roads empty. Stars appear overhead one by one. Bright. Patient. Watching over tired workers settling gently into sleep. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the fields, tomorrow already waits again. Another morning hidden quietly inside the night. Another ordinary day carried gently forward beneath slow and faithful skies. The village rests quietly beneath the deep hours of night. By now, most candles have long burned low. The final sounds of evening have drifted away into silence. Doors remain closed against the cool darkness, and soft wind moves carefully between narrow roads lined with sleeping cottages. Nothing feels urgent here. The world seems to pause for a while. Only the quiet breathing of animals, the distant rustle of leaves, and the slow turning of clouds above remind anyone awake that time still moves forward. Inside a cottage near the fields, a farmer sleeps heavily. The day has settled deep into his bones. His hands, roughened by years of labor, rest quietly across a worn blanket. His shoulders still carry traces of yesterday's work. Even sleep cannot fully loosen the tiredness shaped by long seasons spent beneath open skies. Nearby, children sleep close together for warmth. The room feels peaceful now. The fire has softened into gentle embers. Orange light flickers faintly against the walls. Simple things rest quietly around the room. A wooden bowl drying near the hearth. A cloak hanging beside the doorway. Tools leaning carefully against the wall, already waiting for morning. Life rarely pauses for long. Even in rest, tomorrow quietly waits nearby. Outside, mist gathers low across the fields once more. The earth cools beneath moonlight. Wooden fences stretch through darkness like soft shadows against the land. The village seems smaller at night. Safer somehow. Held gently inside silence. Then, little by little, morning begins its slow return. The stars fade softly. Gray light touches the horizon. The cold grows sharper for a while before sunrise arrives. A rooster calls. Then another. Soon enough, movement begins again. A door opens softly. Footsteps cross damp ground. Smoke begins rising slowly from chimneys. The familiar rhythm returns. Inside one home, a woman wraps herself against the cold before kneeling beside the hearth. Her hands already know what to do. Small sticks. Dry wood. Careful patience. The fire wakes slowly. A soft crackle. A faint glow. Then warmth. Soon, the room changes shape beneath flickering light. Morning begins quietly. No rushing. Only familiar movements repeated across countless days. Nearby, someone kneads dough for bread. Hands press gently into flour. Turn. Fold. Press again. The work feels steady. Comforting in its repetition. Bread matters deeply here. It appears at nearly every meal. Dark rye bread. Barley loaves. Whatever grain the season has allowed. A family may worry over many things, but a warm loaf still offers small comfort. Outside, the village road slowly begins filling with life. Farmers head toward fields carrying worn tools over tired shoulders. Women move carefully with water buckets balanced against aching arms. Children help where they can. Feeding chickens. Gathering wood. Sweeping floors. Carrying small bundles too light for adults to notice, yet important all the same. Morning air smells of damp earth and smoke. Birds move softly through trees. Clouds stretch gently across a pale sky. The village wakes without noise. Without hurry. Only movement. Quiet and steady. Near the center of the village, the baker has already begun work. Warm air spills softly from the doorway. The smell of fresh bread drifts outward like something warm enough to hold. People notice. Always. Perhaps someone smiles quietly while passing. Perhaps someone simply breathes more deeply. Comfort sometimes arrives through very small things. Warm bread. Dry shoes. A kind word. The chance to rest for a moment beneath shade. At the forge, morning heat already rises. The blacksmith stands near glowing metal, sweat gathering despite the cool weather outside. Hammer strikes iron with calm rhythm. Again. Then again. The sound feels familiar enough to disappear into village life. Someone waits patiently nearby for a broken hinge. Another hopes for repairs to a farming tool before the next rainfall arrives. Without strong tools, long days become longer. Everything feels connected here. The carpenter shapes wood nearby. Hands careful. Movements slow. A cartwheel needing repair. A stool for someone's home. A wooden handle worn smooth after years of work. Objects rarely disappear simply because they grow old. They are mended, strengthened, used again and again. In medieval Europe, patience becomes part of ordinary life. At the riverbank, water moves quietly over smooth stones. Women gather there with baskets of clothing resting beside them. Hands scrub cloth carefully. Voices drift softly through cool morning air. Simple conversations rise and fade like wind. Talk of weather. A neighbor's illness. A coming market day. Someone's child growing taller. Ordinary worries. Ordinary comforts. Nearby, younger children sometimes wander close to the water's edge. Watching fish move beneath the surface. Skipping stones when no one minds too much. Small moments of play unfolding between responsibilities. Even children understand work here. Yet childhood still finds small spaces to breathe. Back in the fields, the day stretches onward. Farmers bend low beneath sunlight growing steadily warmer. Hands move through soil. Weeds pulled carefully. Fences checked. Animals watched. The work feels endless sometimes. There is always something needing repair. Something needing care. A broken gate. A weak patch of crops. Rain clouds worth watching. Still, people continue. Quietly. Patiently. The land teaches endurance. By midday, the village slows slightly beneath warmth. Workers rest where they can. A farmer sits beneath a tree eating bread wrapped in cloth. Someone nearby drinks cool water in silence. A woman rests aching arms after carrying heavy loads since sunrise. The pause feels short, yet deeply needed. Bodies grow tired quickly under long hours of labor, especially after years of repetition. An older worker stretches stiff hands slowly, watching sunlight move through nearby grass, listening to distant birds, perhaps enjoying the stillness before afternoon work begins again. No one rests for long. The day keeps moving. Afternoon light settles softly across rooftops and open land. At the mill, grain turns steadily into flour. The water wheel creaks gently. River water moves with patient purpose beneath it. People arrive carrying sacks. Others wait. Waiting feels ordinary here. Nothing comes quickly. Not bread. Not clothing. Not harvest. Even hope asks for time. Back in the village, smoke drifts lazily through warm air. Dogs sleep beside doorways. An old woman sits in sunlight repairing worn fabric with careful hands. Needle through cloth. Pause. Thread again. Every stitch matters. A good cloak may survive many winters if treated gently. By evening, the sky slowly begins changing color. Soft gold spreads across fields. Long shadows stretch over roads. Workers start walking home. Tired feet pressing familiar paths. Tools resting heavily against shoulders. Animals fed before darkness comes. The village grows softer now. Slower. Even quieter. Inside homes, supper waits. Soup warming gently over fire. Bread shared between tired hands. Perhaps cabbage. Perhaps beans. Whatever the season has offered. Simple food tastes better after long work. Families gather close to warmth. Someone tells a quiet story. Someone listens without speaking. A child falls asleep before the meal fully ends. Outside, stars return overhead. One by one. The forge cools. The baker rests. The roads empty again. Only wind moves gently through the sleeping village. And slowly, patiently, another ordinary day folds itself into silence. Tomorrow already waits quietly beyond the darkness. Another sunrise. Another loaf of bread. Another day carried gently forward through familiar roads, tired hands, and the steady rhythm of life beneath open skies. The night feels deeper now. A cool stillness settles gently over the village as though the world itself has grown tired. The final warmth of evening fires fades slowly behind cottage walls, and darkness stretches quietly across fields resting beneath the moon. The roads lie empty. Wooden fences cast long soft shadows against pale ground. A quiet breeze moves through tall grass, carrying the faint smell of earth cooling after a long day. Somewhere in the distance, water moves softly through a narrow stream. Steady. Patient. The kind of sound easy to fall asleep beside. Inside one small cottage, sleep rests heavily upon the family gathered there. The father lies near the hearth, exhausted from long hours repairing broken fencing in the fields. A child sleeps close by, wrapped carefully beneath patched blankets. Near the doorway, worn boots rest side by side, still marked with dried mud from yesterday's work. Everything in the room carries small signs of ordinary life. A wooden spoon resting beside an empty bowl. A basket waiting quietly for tomorrow's bread. Clothes folded near the fire to dry. Nothing fancy. Nothing wasted. Only useful things living gentle lives beside the people who depend upon them. The house itself feels small, yet comforting. A place of warmth against cold weather. A place where familiar voices gather at the end of hard days. Outside, the village seems almost forgotten beneath the stars. No sound from the forge now. No movement near the well. Only stillness. Then, slowly, the night begins to loosen. The sky softens little by little. Dark blue shifts toward pale gray. Morning waits patiently beyond the hills. And once again, another ordinary day begins. A rooster calls into the quiet. Then another farther away. The sounds spread gently across the village like ripples over calm water. A door opens softly. Footsteps cross damp earth. Smoke rises slowly into cold air. Morning returns. Inside a cottage near the baker's home, someone kneels beside the hearth. The room feels cold enough to make hands ache. But the work begins anyway. Dry branches. Small pieces of wood. Careful patience. Soon enough, a flame flickers softly awake. Warmth returns little by little. The smell of smoke curls gently through the room. Familiar. Comforting. Nearby, bread from the previous day waits upon the table. Still useful. Still enough. A woman slices pieces carefully so nothing is wasted. Food matters deeply. Especially after difficult seasons. People know hunger here. Not always severe. But familiar enough to shape habits. A crumb dropped accidentally might still be picked up. Soup stretches ingredients farther. Vegetables stored for winter are guarded carefully. Nothing feels certain enough to waste. Outside, the village slowly stirs beneath soft morning mist. The road remains quiet at first. Then movement grows. A farmer walks toward the fields carrying tools worn smooth by years of use. A young boy follows behind, still sleepy but ready to help. At the well, buckets lower into cold water with soft splashes. Voices rise gently. Neighbors greeting neighbors. Simple words. Simple mornings. Nobody seems hurried. The day is long enough already. Near one doorway, a woman shakes dust from blankets before sunlight fully arrives. Nearby, chickens scratch softly against the earth. A dog stretches lazily before wandering toward familiar smells drifting from kitchens. Morning belongs to routine. The same familiar tasks repeated again and again. And somehow, there is comfort in that. Knowing what the day asks. Knowing where to go. Knowing the shape of labor before it even begins. The baker works before most others have fully awakened. Hands covered lightly in flour. Dough folded and pressed with quiet patience. The smell drifting through the village feels warm and welcoming. Bread baking before sunrise somehow makes the world feel safer. More settled. People passing nearby slow for only a moment. The scent follows them softly into the morning. Near the forge, heat begins building once again. The blacksmith moves steadily through familiar work. Hammer against iron. A pause. Then again. The sound rings softly through cool air. Not harsh. Almost comforting. Someone waits nearby holding a damaged farming blade. A broken hinge rests upon a workbench. Life depends upon repair. Everything wears down eventually. Wood splits. Metal bends. Leather weakens. And so work continues. Quietly keeping ordinary life together. At the edge of the village, the fields stretch wide beneath pale sunlight. Morning dew still clings to tall grass. A farmer kneels near young crops. Watching carefully. Checking for signs of damage. The weather always feels important. Perhaps the most important thing. Rain means growth. Too much rain means trouble. Cold arrives too early. Heat lasts too long. Every season carries uncertainty. And yet planting continues. Hope continues too. A woman nearby gathers herbs growing wild near a stone path. Her basket fills slowly. Plants for cooking. Plants for healing. Simple remedies passed quietly between generations. Knowledge learned not from books, but from memory. From mothers teaching daughters. Neighbors sharing wisdom. Small understandings carried gently through time. At the riverbank, washing begins. Cloth pressed carefully against smooth stone. Water moving steadily nearby. Voices soft. Tired but familiar. Someone speaks about weather expected later in the week. Someone else mentions a child recovering from illness. Nothing dramatic. Only ordinary worries shared between ordinary people. The river listens quietly. Its steady movement somehow makes conversation softer. Gentler. Children wander nearby carrying smaller responsibilities. A bundle of sticks. A basket. Perhaps a younger sibling to watch for a while. Even when chores wait, moments of play still arrive quietly. A stick becoming a sword for a few minutes. A game beside the grass. Laughter drifting briefly through warm air before work calls them back. By midday, warmth settles across rooftops and open land. Workers pause beneath shade when possible. Bread wrapped in cloth. Water carried from morning. Simple meals eaten slowly. Someone removes tired boots for a moment. Feet sore from walking. Hands resting quietly. The body asks for pause. Even if only briefly. An older woman sits near her doorway mending clothing. Needle moving carefully through worn fabric. Patch over patch. A sleeve repaired. A tear made useful again. Patience lives everywhere in this world. Patience with weather. Patience with hunger. Patience with tiredness. Afternoon moves slowly forward. Clouds drift lazily overhead. The carpenter smooths rough wood near his workshop. The mill turns steadily. Animals graze quietly. Smoke drifts softly through warm air. The village hums with small efforts. Hundreds of ordinary tasks quietly holding life together. Then slowly, almost unnoticed, evening begins arriving again. The sunlight softens. Long shadows stretch across roads. The air cools little by little. Farmers begin returning from the fields. Shoulders heavy. Hands aching. Faces tired. Yet relieved perhaps. Another day finished. Inside homes, supper waits. Soup warming gently over fire. The smell of herbs filling the room. Bread broken into smaller pieces. A family gathered close together near warmth. Children growing sleepy before darkness fully settles. Someone speaks softly about tomorrow's weather. Another sharpens a blade near the fire. Outside, stars begin appearing overhead once more. The forge cools. The river grows quieter. The roads empty gently into darkness. And once again, the village settles softly into sleep, held carefully between hard work and quiet rest. Another ordinary day resting peacefully beneath the patient sky. Before the village wakes, there is a moment when everything feels suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. The roads are still empty. The cottages rest beneath fading stars. Even the wind seems quieter, moving slowly through fences and narrow footpaths worn smooth by many years of tired footsteps. The night has not fully gone. Yet morning waits nearby. The fields lie dark beneath a thin layer of mist. Grass bends softly beneath cool drops of dew. Somewhere far away, water moves quietly through a stream hidden in the darkness. Its sound rises gently into the stillness, soft enough to almost disappear. Inside one small cottage, a woman wakes before the others. The room remains dim. Only pale traces of moonlight rest against the floor. She listens for a moment. The quiet breathing of sleeping children. The soft shifting of blankets. The gentle sound of wind brushing lightly against the walls. This hour belongs to stillness. Soon enough, work will return. But not yet. Slowly, she rises. Her feet touch the cool floor. The room feels cold after sleep. Outside, dawn has not yet reached the village, though the darkness already feels thinner somehow. She kneels beside the hearth. Ash waits quietly where last night's fire faded away. Careful hands brush gently through the gray. Searching. Finding small pieces of warmth still hiding beneath. A few dry sticks. A patient breath. Then another. Soon enough, the fire stirs awake. A faint orange glow. Soft crackling. Smoke rising gently through the room. Warmth returns slowly. The familiar smell settles into the morning air. Wood smoke feels like part of home here. It clings to clothes. To blankets. To old wooden beams overhead. No one seems to notice it much anymore. It belongs to ordinary life. Nearby, bread rests beneath cloth from yesterday's baking. Dark and rough. Simple. Still enough. Nothing is wasted. A loaf may last many meals if handled carefully. A bowl of soup stretches farther when bread rests beside it. People learn patience with food. Carefulness. Especially during difficult seasons. Harvests do not always arrive kindly. Winter asks for planning. And hunger waits quietly whenever fortune turns cold. Outside, the first rooster finally breaks the silence. Its call spreads softly across the village. Then another answers farther away. Soon, movement begins. A door opens. Someone crosses damp ground carrying water buckets. A dog shakes sleep from its fur near the road. Smoke rises slowly from the first chimneys. Morning begins again. Not suddenly. Never suddenly. Only little by little. The village wakes the same way flowers open beneath soft sunlight. Patiently. At the well, familiar footsteps gather. Women wrap shawls tightly against the cold morning air. Buckets lower slowly. Water splashes softly below. The sound feels comforting now. Part of daily rhythm. Neighbors exchange quiet greetings. Tired smiles. Simple words. No one speaks loudly at this hour. The morning feels too gentle for that. Nearby, a young boy struggles to carry wood larger than his arms comfortably allow. He walks carefully. Trying not to drop anything. Trying to help. Children here grow close to responsibility. Not because anyone wishes hardship upon them. Simply because life asks many hands to work together. A family depends upon everyone. Even small efforts matter. Back inside the cottages, breakfast slowly begins. Steam rises from warm porridge. Bread sliced carefully. Perhaps a little butter. Perhaps none. A cup of waterdale or warm broth waits beside the meal. Simple food. Familiar food. Food meant to carry tired bodies through long mornings. Families gather quietly near the fire. The youngest still blinking sleep from their eyes. An older daughter prepares to help wash clothing later. A father checks weather through the doorway before heading toward the fields. The sky matters. Always. Gray clouds may promise rain. Strong winds bring worry. Cold mornings lingering too long may threaten young crops. People learn to read the world around them carefully. Clouds. Birds. Wind. The feeling in the air before storms arrive. Outside, daylight slowly reaches the village road. Farmers begin leaving for work. Their tools worn smooth from long years of use. The fields stretch patiently beyond the cottages. Waiting. Always waiting. A farmer walks slowly beside his son. Little conversation passes between them. Not because silence feels heavy. Only because the morning already says enough. Birdsong rises softly. The smell of damp earth settles around them. Boots press into soft ground. And the day begins. At the baker's house, warm air drifts gently from the doorway. Bread already bakes before sunrise fully arrives. The smell spreads quietly through nearby streets. Rich. Comforting. Steady. Few things feel more reassuring than warm bread waiting after hard labor. People notice it without needing to pause. The scent follows them softly toward their work. Nearby, the forge glows warm against cool morning air. The blacksmith lifts his hammer again. Metal shines briefly in the firelight. A slow rhythm begins. Strike. Pause. Strike again. The sound belongs to village life now. As ordinary as birdsong or footsteps. Someone waits nearby for a repaired tool. A bent farming blade rests upon the workbench. The fields depend upon good tools. And good tools depend upon careful hands. Nothing stands alone here. The carpenter works nearby beneath open sky. Fresh cut wood gathers at his feet. A wheel needing repair. A table worn thin from years of use. A fence post shaped carefully for someone's field. Wood shavings curl softly beside worn boots. Everything takes time. Nothing arrives quickly. Not bread. Not buildings. Not harvest. Even healing asks for patience. Farther away, women kneel beside the river. Laundry rests in woven baskets nearby. Hands move through cold water. Cloth scrubbed carefully against stone. The river speaks softly beside them. Its steady sound fills quiet pauses between conversation. They speak of ordinary things. Weather changing. A neighbor's fever. The coming cold. Someone's child learning quickly. The kinds of things people carry gently through daily life. Children wander nearby when work allows. Skipping stones. Watching fish beneath the surface. Running through grass before being called back to chores. Even busy days leave small room for joy. The morning grows warmer. Mist slowly disappears from the fields. Workers bend toward their labor. Hands moving through soil. Animals guided carefully. Fences checked. Seeds watched closely. Every task matters. Every season matters. Because survival grows quietly from ordinary effort. By midday, workers pause where shade allows. Bread wrapped in cloth. Cool water. A few quiet moments of stillness. Someone stretches aching shoulders. Another rests sore feet. Nobody speaks much. The silence feels peaceful. Earned somehow. Above them, clouds drift lazily across wide skies. The afternoon waits patiently. And soon enough, work begins again. Slowly. Steadily. just as it always has. Back in the village, smoke rises softly into warm air. The mill turns steadily near the water. Dogs rest beside doorways. An old woman repairs torn fabric with patient hands. Needle through cloth. Pause. Thread again. Life continues through small efforts. Quiet efforts. The kind history often forgets. As evening slowly approaches, shadows lengthen over roads and gardens. The sunlight softens. Golden now. Warm against tired faces. Farmers begin walking home. Tools resting heavily against sore shoulders. Animals fed before darkness settles. Children grow quieter with tiredness. Inside homes, supper begins. Soup simmering gently. Bread shared. A little cheese if fortune allows. Simple meals filling empty stomachs. The fire glows warmly. Someone tells a quiet story. Someone listens with sleepy eyes. Outside, darkness gathers once more. Stars appear patiently overhead. The road's empty. The village grows still. And little by little, another ordinary day drifts softly into rest. Held gently between cold mornings, warm bread, aching hands, and the quiet comfort of familiar voices waiting at the end of the day. The village sleeps quietly beneath another wide and patient sky. Night has settled fully now. The final warmth of evening fires rests softly inside cottages while the roads outside remain still and empty. Wooden fences stand quietly beneath moonlight. Trees move only slightly in the cool wind drifting across open land. Everything feels softer at night. Smaller somehow. The fields, so busy during daylight, now rest beneath pale silver light. The well sits empty. The forge grows cold. Even the river nearby seems quieter, its steady movement softened by darkness. Inside one cottage near the edge of the village, a family sleeps deeply after a long day of work. The father rests heavily beside the hearth. His hands remain rough from years spent holding tools, pulling roots from stubborn soil, lifting wood, repairing fences, and carrying heavy things from one season to the next. Even during sleep, tiredness seems to stay near him. Nearby, his wife sleeps lightly. Mothers often do. Listening without fully waking. A child shifting beneath blankets. The soft sound of wind outside. The crackle of a dying ember. The youngest children sleep close together for warmth. Their small breaths rise and fall gently in the quiet room. Blankets patched many times cover tired bodies. The cottage itself feels simple. A wooden bench near the fire. Clay bowls drying quietly after supper. A basket resting beside the table, waiting for tomorrow's bread. Nothing grand. Only useful things. Things touched by everyday life. A spoon worn smooth by years of meals. A cloak repaired so many times its oldest fabric barely shows. A stool slightly uneven but still strong enough to serve another year. Ordinary objects growing old beside ordinary people. Outside, clouds move slowly above the sleeping village. The stars remain steady. Bright and patient. Watching over roads shaped by countless footsteps. Watching over fields waiting silently for sunrise. Hours pass quietly. Then, almost unnoticed, the darkness begins to loosen. The sky changes first. Not quickly. Only slowly. Black softens into deep blue. Then pale gray begins to gather far beyond the fields. Morning waits nearby again. A rooster calls softly. Then another. The sounds drift across rooftops like quiet reminders. A new day has arrived. Inside the cottages, movement begins. Someone rises before sunrise. Someone reaches for firewood stacked carefully near the hearth. Someone steps quietly outside into cold air carrying an empty bucket. Morning always begins gently here. No loud sounds. No sudden rush. Only the slow return of familiar routines. In one home, a woman kneels beside sleeping embers. The room still feels cold enough to sting tired hands. She brushes ash carefully aside. A small glow waits underneath. Still alive. Still warm enough to begin again. Dry wood cracks softly. Smoke rises. Then flame. Soon, warmth slowly spreads across the room. The familiar smell of burning wood settles into morning air. Outside, mist rests low across nearby fields. Grass bends beneath silver drops of dew. Birdsong rises carefully from trees. The village road remains quiet for a little while longer. Then footsteps begin. At the well, neighbors gather with heavy buckets. The rope creaks gently. Water splashes below. Cold air touches tired faces still waking from sleep. Few words are spoken. Morning silence feels peaceful. Comfortable. The kind of silence shared by people who already understand the shape of the day ahead. A young girl waits beside her mother. Her smaller bucket rests near her feet. She watches carefully. Learning. One day, these tasks will belong fully to her too. In medieval Europe, children grow beside responsibility. Work arrives early. Not harshly. Simply naturally. A boy learns to mend fences. A girl learns to knead bread. A child watches animals. Carries wood. Fetches water. The village depends upon many small efforts joined together. Inside homes, breakfast slowly begins. Dark bread sliced into careful pieces. Porridge steaming gently. Perhaps a little cheese if fortune has been kind. Simple meals. Familiar meals. Food meant not for pleasure, but for strength. The work ahead feels long already. A father checks the sky through the doorway. Clouds drift slowly above. The weather matters deeply. Perhaps more than almost anything. Rain means hope. Too much rain means worry. Cold arrives too early. Heat lasts too long. The land asks for patience. Always patience. Soon enough, workers begin moving outward toward the day. Farmers carry tools worn smooth by years of labor. The carpenter pushes wood stacked upon a cart. The baker works before sunrise fully arrives. Warm bread slowly fills nearby streets with comforting smells. The blacksmith's forge glows once again. Hammer striking iron. Pause. Then again. The sound rises steadily through morning air. Familiar enough now to feel almost like part of the village itself. At the edge of the fields, sunlight begins touching open land. Mist slowly lifts. A farmer bends toward young crops growing carefully from dark soil. His hands move slowly. Checking leaves. Pulling weeds. Watching for signs of trouble. Nothing grows easily. Food asks for patience too. Seasons decide much. Rain. Sunlight. Wind. Every harvest feels uncertain until it safely rests indoors. Nearby, another farmer repairs broken fencing. Wood creaks softly. A younger son helps hold the post steady. Neither speaks much. The work itself feels enough. The quiet feels natural. Sometimes company does not ask for words. At the riverbank, washing begins. Water moves softly over stone. Hands scrub worn clothing patiently. Voices rise gently between familiar faces. Simple talk. The weather. The harvest. Someone recovering from illness. A child learning quickly. Ordinary things shared quietly beside moving water. Nearby, children steal brief moments of play between chores. Running through grass. Laughing softly. Watching fish near the edge of the river. Even difficult lives leave small spaces for joy. By midday, sunlight settles warmly over the village. Workers pause where shade can be found. Bread wrapped in cloth. Cool water carried from morning. A few quiet moments of rest. Someone stretches sore shoulders. Someone removes heavy boots for a moment. Nobody stays still long. The work waits patiently. Afternoon arrives softly. The mill turns steadily beside moving water. The carpenter smooths rough wood. Smoke drifts lazily above rooftops. Animals graze quietly nearby. The village hums gently with ordinary effort. Small tasks. Repeated tasks. The kind history rarely notices. Yet these small efforts quietly shape every ordinary day. And slowly, almost too gently to notice, evening begins arriving once more. The sunlight softens. Golden now. Long shadows stretch across roads and fields. Farmers begin walking home. Tired feet pressing familiar ground. Hands aching. Bodies heavy from labor. Animals settle into shelter. Children grow quieter as sleepiness returns. Inside cottages, supper warms over the fire. Soup simmering gently. Bread broken into smaller pieces. Simple food after hard work. Warmth returns to tired rooms. Someone repairs torn clothing. Someone sharpens tools for tomorrow. A child falls asleep near the hearth before the meal has fully ended. Outside, darkness settles slowly over rooftops. Stars begin appearing again. Bright. Steady. The roads empty. The village grows quiet. And once more, another ordinary day folds softly into rest. Tomorrow already waits patiently beyond the dark fields. Another fire to light. Another loaf to bake. Another quiet rhythm of labor and warmth beneath faithful skies. Before dawn reaches the village, there is a gentle stillness that belongs only to the last hours of night. The sky remains dark above the fields, though not completely black now. Somewhere far beyond the hills, morning is already beginning to gather. The stars still rest overhead, soft and steady, while a cool breeze moves quietly through fences and narrow paths worn smooth by years of footsteps. Nothing feels hurried. The world seems content to rest a little longer. The cottages sit quietly beneath the fading moon. Smoke no longer rises from chimneys. Doors remain shut against the cool air. Animals sleep in their shelters, shifting softly from time to time. A horse lowers its head. A chicken rustles gently in straw. The village breathes quietly in its sleep. Inside one cottage near the fields, a farmer lies awake for a moment before rising. The body often wakes before the mind here. Years of routine teach tired muscles the shape of morning. His shoulders ache faintly from yesterday's labor. Hands still feel heavy. A stiffness settles into his knees whenever cold weather lingers too long. Hard work leaves quiet reminders. Still, he rises. Because the day will ask much again. Nearby, the last warmth of the hearth hides beneath gray ash. His wife kneels beside it soon after. She moves carefully. Almost silently. A few dry branches. A patient breath. The smallest glow becomes flame. And slowly, warmth begins to return to the room. The smell of smoke spreads softly through familiar air. Comforting somehow. Steady. Like an old companion that arrives every morning without fail. Light from the fire touches worn objects resting quietly nearby. A clay bowl stacked beside another. A wooden spoon darkened from years of cooking. A folded blanket carefully mended many times. Nothing in the room feels new. But everything feels useful. Useful things matter deeply here. A cracked cup still carries water. A worn cloak still keeps cold away. A basket repaired carefully still holds bread. People mend what they have. Again and again. Outside, darkness slowly loosens its hold over the village. The first rooster speaks into the morning. Then another farther away. Mist gathers low across the fields. The road remains quiet except for soft footsteps beginning to appear. Someone walks toward the well carrying empty buckets. Someone else gathers wood before sunrise fully arrives. The village wakes gently. Never all at once. Only little by little. like sunlight spreading slowly across a cold room. At the well, familiar faces gather in sleepy silence. The rope creaks softly. Water splashes below. Cold air brushes against tired cheeks. A neighbor nods politely. Another wraps warm cloth tighter against the chill. No one rushes conversation. The morning feels too soft for hurried words. Nearby, a young boy struggles slightly beneath an armful of firewood. He carries it carefully toward home, trying his best not to drop anything. Children learn responsibility slowly here. Not through lessons spoken loudly, but through watching, helping, trying. A child notices how bread is made, how fences are repaired, how water is carried. Little by little, daily life teaches them. Inside homes, breakfast begins. Dark bread sliced carefully. Warm oats steaming quietly. Perhaps a little milk if animals have provided enough. Sometimes cheese. Sometimes onions beside bread. Simple meals. Meals shaped by weather and seasons. People eat because work waits. Long mornings ask for strength. A family gathers near the warmth of the fire. The youngest child still sleepy. An older daughter already preparing baskets for later chores. The father glances outside at the sky. Watching clouds. Watching light. The weather matters deeply. Always. Clouds may bring needed rain. Or trouble. Cold winds arriving too early may threaten crops. A dry season may stretch worry across many homes. The sky becomes something people quietly study every day. Soon, the village road begins filling with movement. Farmers head toward the fields carrying worn tools. The blacksmith opens his workshop. The baker has already begun kneading dough. Warm smells drift softly into cool morning air. Bread baking before sunrise somehow makes the village feel cared for. Settled. Safe. People passing nearby notice it quietly. Perhaps without even meaning to. At the forge, fire glows bright against morning gray. The blacksmith lifts his hammer. Metal sparks softly. Strike. Pause. Strike again. The rhythm feels familiar enough now to disappear into ordinary village sounds. Someone waits nearby for repairs to a plow blade. Another needs horseshoes checked. Tools matter deeply. Without them, work grows harder. Long days grow longer. At the edge of the village, fields wait patiently beneath soft sunlight. Mist lifts slowly from grass. Birdsong drifts through cool air. Farmers begin another day beneath open skies. A man bends low beside growing crops. Hands moving carefully through soil. Checking roots. Pulling weeds. Watching for signs of trouble. Nothing here feels certain. Not weather. Not harvest. Not tomorrow. Yet still, people plant. Still, they hope. Hope often grows quietly beside hard work. Nearby, another worker repairs a fence damaged by weather. Wood creaks softly beneath careful hands. A younger child watches closely. Learning. One day, these tasks will belong to him too. No grand teaching. Only example. At the riverbank, laundry begins. Water moves softly over stone. Cloth twists between tired hands. Voices rise gently. Someone speaks of changing weather. Another shares news of a neighbor feeling stronger after illness. Ordinary concerns. Ordinary comforts. The river moves steadily beside them. Its quiet sound soft enough to calm even tired thoughts. Children sometimes wander nearby when work allows. A quick game beside the grass. A smooth stone skipped across water. Laughter drifting briefly through cool air before chores call them back. Even busy lives make room for small moments of lightness. By midday, sunlight grows warmer. Workers pause beneath trees where shade can be found. Bread wrapped carefully in cloth. Cool water carried from earlier. A moment of rest. Someone stretches aching shoulders. Another sits quietly, simply breathing. The body asks for stillness now and then. Especially after long seasons of labor. No one rests too long. The work still waits. Afternoon settles gently across the village. The mill turns beside flowing water. The carpenter shapes wood into useful things. Smoke drifts lazily upward. Animals graze quietly. Dogs rest near warm doorways. The village hums softly with ordinary effort. So many small tasks. So many careful hands. The kind of history often forgotten. Yet perhaps this is where most lives truly unfold. Not in grand halls. Not in loud moments. But in kitchens. Fields. Workshops. Riversides. Quiet places shaped by daily labor and familiar routines. As evening slowly approaches, shadows stretch longer across the land. Golden light settles over rooftops. The air cools gently. Farmers return home. Tired feet walking familiar roads. Hands rough from work. Shoulders heavy. But another day has been carried safely through. Inside cottages, supper warms over the fire. Soup simmering gently. Bread shared. Simple meals tasting somehow richer after long labor. Children grow sleepy beside warmth. Someone mends torn cloth. Someone sharpens tools for tomorrow. Outside, stars slowly appear overhead. One by one. The village quiets again. The forge cools. The well grows still. The roads empty into darkness. And slowly, softly, another ordinary day drifts toward sleep beneath calm and patient skies. The village rests beneath another quiet night. Darkness settles gently over rooftops made from wood and straw, softening the edges of fences and fields until everything feels smaller, calmer, almost hidden beneath the sky. A cool wind moves slowly across open land, carrying the smell of damp earth and fading smoke from evening fires. Most doors have long been closed. Most candles have burned low. The final sounds of supper have disappeared into silence. Only stillness remains now. The kind of stillness shaped by tiredness. After long hours spent working fields, carrying water, repairing tools, baking bread, tending animals, or mending clothing, sleep arrives quickly for most people here. It feels earned. Inside a cottage near the village center, a family sleeps closely together beneath patched blankets. The fire near the hearth glows softly beneath pale ash. Not fully awake. Not fully gone. Just enough warmth remains to soften the cold night air. A father shifts slightly in sleep. His hands still marked with dirt gathered beneath fingernails from a long day spent turning soil. His shoulders ache even at rest. Nearby, a child sleeps deeply after helping gather wood before sunset. The mother rests lightly, as many mothers do, half listening even while asleep. The house itself feels small. Simple. Comfortable in its own quiet way. A wooden stool rests near the fire. Clay bowls wait beside the table for tomorrow's meal. A basket hangs carefully near the wall, holding what little bread remains from yesterday. Nothing fancy. Only familiar things. Things used often. Things repaired carefully. Things trusted. Outside, the village seems forgotten beneath the stars. The forge rests cold and silent. The mill wheel no longer turns. Animals sleep inside dark shelters, shifting softly now and then. The roads stand empty. Only moonlight touches them now. Time passes quietly. The moon travels slowly overhead. Clouds drift without hurry. Then, somewhere beyond the fields, morning begins to gather again. At first, it is difficult to notice. Only the faintest change in darkness. A softness spreading slowly across the horizon. The stars fade one by one. Mist settles low against the earth. Morning waits patiently. Soon, a rooster breaks the silence. Then another. The sound spreads gently across the sleeping village. A reminder. Another ordinary day has arrived. Inside one cottage, movement begins before sunrise fully appears. A woman rises quietly. The floor feels cold beneath tired feet. Her hands already understand the work ahead. The hearth waits. Gray ash hides sleeping warmth. She kneels carefully. Brushes the ashes aside. Adds dry wood gathered the evening before. A patient breath. Then another. Soon, orange light begins to glow softly once more. Warmth slowly stretches across the room. The smell of smoke returns. Familiar. Steady. Almost comforting enough to feel like part of the family itself. Nearby, a child stirs beneath blankets but does not yet wake. Outside, mist curls gently over nearby fields. The village road remains quiet. Only a few early footsteps disturb the stillness. Someone heads toward the well. Someone gathers firewood before daylight grows stronger. Morning moves slowly here. Always slowly. Nothing asks to be rushed. At the well, neighbors gather with buckets hanging from tired hands. The rope creaks softly. Cold water splashes below. People greet one another quietly. A nod. A gentle word. No one speaks loudly. The morning feels peaceful. Almost sleepy still. A young girl stands beside her mother watching carefully. Learning how to lower the bucket. How to carry water without spilling too much. The lessons of daily life happen quietly. Without announcement. Without ceremony. Children learn simply by living beside adults. Watching. Helping. Trying. Nearby, breakfast begins inside cottages. Dark bread cut carefully into small pieces. Warm porridge steaming gently near the fire. Perhaps milk. Perhaps cheese. Sometimes only enough to quiet hunger until midday. Meals feel practical. Necessary. Food meant for strength. Not celebration. A father checks a worn farming tool before leaving. The wooden handle feels loose. It will need repair soon. Little problems grow larger if ignored. People here know that well. A cracked fence becomes broken. A weak roof begins to leak. A small illness grows dangerous. Carefulness becomes part of ordinary life. Soon, the village begins spreading outward into morning labor. Farmers head toward open fields. The baker works beside warm ovens. The blacksmith wakes the forge. The carpenter lifts rough wood onto his bench. The village hums softly beneath early light. Never loudly. Never hurried. Just steadily. The baker's home fills the road with the smell of warm bread. Comforting. Reliable. The scent drifts through cool morning air. People passing nearby notice it quietly. Warm bread feels hopeful somehow. A small promise that the day will continue as expected. At the forge, the blacksmith lifts his hammer. Metal glows softly. Strike. Pause. Strike again. The rhythm settles into the morning like birdsong. Someone waits patiently nearby holding a broken tool. Repairs matter deeply. Without strong tools, hard work grows harder. The fields wait patiently outside the village. Mist slowly lifts beneath growing sunlight. A farmer bends low beside crops. Hands careful against delicate growth. Weeds pull gently. Soil checked closely. The weather remains in everyone's thoughts. Always. Too much rain. Too little rain. Strong winds. Early frost. Nature decides much here. Still, people work. Because hope asks for effort. Nearby, another worker repairs a damaged fence. Wood creaks softly. A son watches nearby. Perhaps helping. Perhaps simply learning. Knowledge passes quietly between generations. No grand lessons. Only example. The riverbank grows busy as morning continues. Women kneel beside flowing water, washing clothing carefully against smooth stones. Voices drift softly. The sound of moving water settles gently around conversation. Someone speaks of changing weather. Someone mentions a neighbor recovering from sickness. Someone laughs softly about a child chasing chickens again. Ordinary stories. Small stories. Yet meaningful. Children wander nearby when work allows. A skipped stone. A short race through grass. A laugh carried briefly through morning air. Even busy lives make space for little joys. By midday, sunlight rests warmly across the village. Workers pause beneath trees. Bread wrapped in cloth. Water shared carefully. Someone removes heavy boots for a few moments. Another stretches aching hands. The silence feels peaceful. Nobody rushes rest. Though rest never lasts long. The afternoon still waits. Smoke rises gently above rooftops. The mill wheel turns beside the river. The carpenter shapes rough wood. Animals graze quietly. The village moves through countless small tasks. Repairing. Gathering. Building. Cooking. Mending. Quiet work holding ordinary life together. As the day slowly softens, shadows grow longer across roads and gardens. Evening approaches gently. Farmers begin the walk home. Bodies tired. Hands rough. Feet sore. Still, home waits. Warmth waits. Inside cottages, fires return to life. Soup simmers quietly. Bread breaks into waiting hands. Children grow sleepy near the hearth. Someone repairs torn fabric. Someone sharpens tools for tomorrow. Outside, stars slowly begin appearing once again. The village quiets. The forge cools. The roads empty. And another ordinary day settles softly into sleep beneath calm and faithful skies. The night over the village feels deeper now, as if it has gently stretched itself across everything that once moved during the day. The fields are still. The roads are empty. The cottages sit quietly beneath a wide sky filled with soft, fading stars. Even the wind moves differently now. Slower. Softer. Like it no longer wishes to disturb anything that has finally come to rest. Inside the homes, there is no more waiting for morning. Only sleep. The kind of sleep shaped by many hours of work, many quiet routines, and many simple days that all looked almost the same, yet still carried their own weight. A farmer rests near the hearth, his body finally still after seasons of rising before dawn and returning after sunset. A mother sleeps beside her children, her hands folded loosely, no longer carrying water buckets or bread dough or cloth meant for mending. An old man breathes slowly in the corner of a room that has held his entire life within its wooden walls. Nothing is hurried anymore. Nothing is required. Outside, the village remains gently held in darkness. The forge is cold. The mill is still. The river continues its soft movement, but even it feels quieter tonight, as if it too understands the rest that has settled over everything. There is no sound of work. No footsteps on the road. No voices calling across fields. Only the presence of night, steady and complete. Above it all, the sky continues its slow turning. Stars remain bright, but distant. Patient. Unchanging. They watch over places like this, where life is not made of great moments, but of countless ordinary ones repeated again and again. Bread baked in the morning. Water carried at dawn. Fields worked under changing skies. Firelight at evening. Sleep at night. A rhythm so simple it almost disappears, yet so steady it holds everything together. And now, even that rhythm rests. The story of this place does not end with a single moment. It fades instead. Like smoke rising from a dying fire. Like footsteps slowly disappearing into soft earth. Like voices becoming quieter until they are only memory. There is no final scene. No last word. Only the gentle continuation of time, moving forward without hurry, without announcement, without needing to be seen. The village remains where it has always been. Quiet beneath the sky. Held between fields and night. Waiting, as it always has, for morning that will come again in its own time. But for now, everything is still. Everything is soft. Everything is resting. And like that, the world of ordinary days slowly fades into silence, and sleep,